Misima Kataukan, you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. The US is launching multi-day air drills in the Middle East, deploying a carrier-led armada as tensions rise with Iran, while Washington signals both military readiness and openness to talks. US President Donald Trump says the US and South Korea will work something out after he announced a hike in tariffs on imports from the Asian country to 25%. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel will not allow a Palestinian state in Gaza, vowing to retain full security control over the territory. Syrian President Ahmad al-Sharaa will be visiting Moscow, Russia today to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin. This comes amid heightened tensions as both are set to discuss those as priority. According to Syrian media reports, President Trump held a lengthy phone call with Syrian President Ahmad al-Sharaa, and they reiterated the importance of diplomacy amid heightened tensions with Iran. Taiwan's defense ministry has warned that an opposition proposal to cut the planned $40 billion special military budget and drop the T-Dome air defense system, as they say it would not be practical for now and would undermine defense readiness amid growing pressure, as the special funding bill has now been blocked for the 10th time in Parliament. Guinea's President Mamadi Doumbouya has reappointed former junta member Amadou Ouri Ba as Prime Minister. Newly elected Doumbouya also announced a new government structure of 27 ministries and 2 Secretaries General, with more appointments to be expected. TikTok owner ByteDance has reached a last-minute settlement in a landmark social media addiction trial, just ahead of jury selection, while Meta and Google remain defendants. Now for this hour, we start with U.S. Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar was sprayed with an unknown substance during a town hall in Minneapolis. A man attacked Omar with a syringe, releasing a foul-smelling liquid before being swiftly tackled by the security. However, Omar continued her remarks, showing her resilience in the face of this attack. The incident occurred amid her strong criticism of U.S. immigration and customs enforcement, where she called for its abolition. The suspect was arrested and charged with third-degree assault. However, this attack has drawn widespread condemnation from political leaders across party lines, with local officials and lawmakers denouncing the assault. Further investigation into the incident is underway, with authorities ensuring that this type of violence against public figures will not be tolerated. Now we move on to Russia and Ukraine. Russian strikes near Ukraine's capital have killed 2 people and wounded several others, according to regional military officials. The latest attack brings the death toll from overnight strikes across Ukraine to at least 12 people. 5 of those killed were passengers on a civilian train, which was hit by a Russian drone in the northeast. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has condemned the attacks as terrorism, saying they are undermining peace efforts and ongoing U.S.-brokered talks. The strikes have also knocked out power to hundreds of thousands, leaving civilians without electricity in freezing winter conditions. Despite diplomatic talks held last week and more planned, strikes has continued heavy drone and missile attacks across the country as well. Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Colonel Sanjit Sirohi. He's an international relations and defense expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Colonel, for joining us. Good to see you. Now, looking at this, how do you think, how is this, ongoing escalating attacks jeopardizing the ceasefire efforts that's been done from all parties?
Good morning, Usuma.
Good morning.
First of all,
Yes.
Thank you very much for having me on this channel for discussing something very, very important. Now, as you see, in last 24 hours, there have been 12 people have been killed, and especially what is alarming is the attack on a train in the northeast, in the Kharkiv region, where 5 people have died and number of them have been injured. So Zelensky is absolutely right when he called this a terrorism or act of terror, and it is undermining the efforts to end the war. On the one hand, there are peace talks going on. That we just had 2 days of peace talks on Friday and Saturday in Abu Dhabi, and the next round of talks are being planned for 1st February, for which Mr. Zelensky has said that it should be preponed so that the Russians they are brought to the negotiating table and the war comes to an end as early as possible. But what I see is that as the talks are getting closer, the Russians are striking again and again because they have not been able to achieve their objective, which was to take over the complete Donbas region. And that is the main point of contention between the two parties. So I think this escalation will keep on going on till the peace deal is finalized. Asuma.
Right. So why do you think that Russia is intensifying, attacks now? Some of our guests have suggested that before the ceasefire happens, they want to take as much territory as possible. That's their intention. What's your take on that, Colonel?
Absolutely, Asuma. I fully agree with the guests who have said that. The main aim is that if you see the objective of Russians' offensive or military operation, as they call it, was to take the Donbas region complete. Now, so far, they have been able to take only 90% of that, and still the 10% is left. And their main agenda is that they are going to capture the complete Donbas region until unless Zelensky agrees to hand over the complete Donbas region to Russians. The Russians will keep on escalating so that they ensure that Zelensky accept their demand as early as possible. So this escalation is not going to end on 1st February. If the talks are further delayed, then this escalation will keep on moving till Russia has achieved their military objective, that is of taking the complete Donbas region. So Zelensky has to be prepared for that. Now the choice between Zelensky has is either to hand over the complete Donbas region or keep on fighting and keep on losing and keep on having a lot of casualties every day. Right. Asuma.
And Colonel, so as we know that trilateral talks used to take place elsewhere, like Turkey, Alaska, and now they've moved to UAE, a Middle Eastern country. Do you think the locations matter and the mediation efforts by UAE makes any difference from the mediation efforts that was being done by US in comparison?
Look, if you look at that, now this was the first time when they met on 23rd January and 24th January, when all the three parties, that is United States, Ukraine, and Russian delegation, they met, and that included the military officials also. So I think it was quite a serious issue, and why Abu Dhabi has been selected for these talks. I think it is the neutral country where all the three countries have good relation with Abu Dhabi. So I think that must be the reason that they have selected this place as a neutral place. Asuma.
Right. And also, do you think that U.S., before it was always a bilateral, right? U.S. was in the middle always. But now that it's become trilateral, all these three parties are in the table. Do you think it was because U.S. pushed their agenda too hard to both parties when they were using U.S. as a channel or mediator? Or do you think there were other reasons that now it's a trilateral?
Look, the problem, what is there is that initially the talks were between the Americans and the Russians. So the Ukrainians were not involved, and it was quite funny also that the party who is fighting the war was not included. Because initially when the proposal were given, it was a pro-Russian proposal which Ukrainian had not agreed to it. And secondly, since USA has to give the security guarantee after the peace deal has been brokered, so that is the reason why USA is also involved. Until unless Zelensky is completely sure and confident that Americans will give him security guarantee after the peace deal has been brokered, till then, I think USA is going to play a very important role. And secondly, USA is trying to pressurize Mr. Zelensky to agree to the demands of Russia, and that the main demand, which is the bone of contention, is about the territory. So which Zelensky is not ready to. In fact, he says that the territory issue should be respected by all the parties. So that is the main bone of contention. Only one point has been left out, and that is the territory. Until Mr. Zelensky agrees to hand over that Donbas region to Russians, I don't think any peace deal will be brokered. Asuma.
Thank you very much, Colonel, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for later discussion. Now we move on to Middle East. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has warned that Israel would strike back with unprecedented force if Iran attacks the country. Netanyahu has said that any attack by Iran would be met with a level of force it has never experienced. He has also referenced US President Donald Trump's recent remarks on Iran, while stressing Israel will act independently if threatened. The warning comes amid heightened tensions after the United States deployed an aircraft carrier strike group to the region. Iran has responded that it would defend itself against any aggression. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian also criticized U.S. threats in a call with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, calling them destabilizing to the region. Now, for this discussion, we welcome back Colonel Sanjay Sirohi. He's joining us from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Colonel, for staying with us. Now, how are we to make of this situation where, U.S. says that they're open to talks, and Netanyahu is giving these kind of warnings that we heard just now, and Iran has also started to, send messages like no attack will be tolerated, and also now countries like UAE and other countries have stated that they don't want their airspace to be reached or used. What's your take?
Look, if we see for last 1 week or 10 days, there has been escalation in the rhetoric of all the three parties, that the United States, Iran, and Israel. And these are, day by day, these rhetoric are escalating. As a result of which, there's a lot of tension in the Middle East. The United States, carrier has already moved. Abraham Lincoln has already reached the area where it is supposed to be deployed. So I think the tensions are very, very high. And the complete Middle East countries, they are very, very, worried about that in case their space is used by the American forces whose bases are located in these countries, then there will be retaliatory attack from the Iranians. Then Iranians have made it absolutely clear that our neighbors, we take them as a friend, but if their airspaces are being used by the Americans, then we will consider them as hostiles, and we will take all actions which are required to be taken in that situation. So this situation is very, very weak and very, very problematic for everyone. And Mr. Netanyahu has made it absolutely clear that whatever decision Israel will take, that will be taken by them and not by Donald Trump. Let Donald Trump take whatever decision he wants to take, but the Israelis will decide what action they have to take. So, because what is happening is that Mr. Donald Trump is not very sure whether he is going to attack or not attack, because I think he is worried about attacking, because he knows that once he attacks Iran, this time it will be full-fledged war, which the American economy and the American administration does not want. So the other option, I think, which Mr. Donald Trump may be trying to evolve is that, like Venezuela, where there was a naval blockade for the last 2-3 months, the same naval blockade the Americans will try on Iran also. And as and when the situation they feel is absolutely right to take any decision, that is the time they will take the decision either to strike Iran or to change the regime by kidnapping, like it was done in the Venezuela case, Ayatollah Khamenei. If that be the case, then there will be all-out war. Asuma.
And how do you analyze the current readiness or the combat readiness of U.S. in the Middle East and also Iran? Do you think Iran is capable? How do you analyze their capability? Yes.
Look, Asuma, if you see the military balance between the two countries, Americans are much, much stronger than the Iranians. But Iranians are not the Venezuelan army. They are hardcore, they have got professional army, they are dedicated and they love their country. So it will not be easy for the Americans also to do what they have done in Venezuela. Although the Iranians in the last are going to lose, but they will fight and they will fight very well. Whether it is Americans or they are fighting with Israel, they are going to fight it very hard, and it will be a problem for both Iran and Americans. And if Israel also comes into play, then for the Israelis also. The Iranians, I think militarily they may be not that strong as the Americans, but they have got enough forces. In addition to that, they have got proxies. The Houthis in Yemen have already said, and they have circulated a video in which they have shown a burning ship, and there is written on that we are coming soon. So in addition to the Iranian forces, there are the proxies which may be like to some extent they have been disarmed like Hezbollah and Hamas, but there are Iranian proxies in Iraq also who are ready to fight for Iran. So it will not be an easy win for Donald Trump. He has to fight it out, and the final victory will not be that clean.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. And last but not least, Iran has reached out to Saudi Arabia and other Muslim countries which are not traditionally they're not traditional allies, I must say. Also the fact that Iran is a Shia Muslim country and Saudi Arabia is hardcore Sunni Muslim country, right? Yes. So do you think Iran is cornered that way, or do you think Iran is desperate? That's why we see this happening.
No, I don't agree to that. Iran is cornered. They are not cornered. They are absolutely placed in the right place, and they are playing the right diplomatic game also. They've already mentioned to their neighbors or the other countries that they are friendly with them. They have got no enmity with them. They are their friends, as long as they don't allow the Americans to use their airspace, whether it is land, air or sea. So that they have made it very clear, and they also know that if they are going to fight with Americans, so they cannot launch missiles which can land in America. So they will start firing at the bases of Americans which are in these states only, like Jordan there, Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi there, Djibouti is there. So there are number 9-10 bases which are active, and there are another 20 bases which are not active. They may be activated later on, or they may be in the process of activating them. So it is not that the Iranians are cornered. They are going to fight, and they are going to fight very well. They are not going to not only inflict casualties on the Americans' fleet, but they are going to inflict casualties on the American bases also. And those bases are located in these countries. And if I am saying that if Americans they start hitting their oil sites, then the Iranian will start hitting the oil sites of all the other neighboring countries also. That is why all the neighboring countries are worried, and they have categorically, especially Saudi Arabia, have told Americans that they will not allow their airspace to be used by American forces. Asuma.
Great. With that, I would like to thank Colonel Sirohi for joining us today and sharing that insight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we move on to US. The US dollar has been grappling with a crisis of confidence as it has struggled nearly 4-year lows after President Donald Trump has brushed off its recent weakness, exacerbating the dollar selling and lifting the yen, euro and sterling. Trump has said that the value of dollar was great. Meanwhile, the dollar was tumbled over 9% in 2025 and has started the year on the back foot already, down about 2.3% in January 2026. Let's listen into what Trump has shared.
No, I think it's great. I mean, the value of the dollar. Look at the business we're doing. No, dollar's doing great. You know, it's very interesting. If you look at China and Japan, I used to fight like hell with them because they always wanted to devalue their yen. You know that? The yen and the yuan. And they'd always want to devalue it. They devalue. And I said, not fair that you devalue because it's hard to compete when they devalue. But they always fought, no, our dollar's very good.
Now we move on to our tech news. According to reports, China has approved the import of Nvidia's H200 artificial intelligence chips. The approval covers several 100,000 H200 chips. The move comes during Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang's visit to China this week. Reports have confirmed that the first batch has been allocated mainly to 3 major Chinese internet companies. Other enterprises are now in line for subsequent approvals. The H200 is Nvidia's second most powerful AI chip and has been a key point of tension in US-China relations. Despite strong demand from Chinese firms and US export approval, Beijing had previously delayed allowing imports. Now, for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Somraj Bhattacharjee. He's an AI and market strategic expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Mr. Somraj, for joining us. Good to see you. Now, looking at this, how could China's approval of importing these chips affect, Nvidia's revenue outlook, also stock performance? What does this initial allocation chip of AI H200 chips mean?
Yeah, thank you for having me. What happens is that when you import such large amounts of advanced chips like H200, you are basically working against the US export controls because primarily Nvidia is an American company, it's based in the US. With the Chinese government deciding to get so many chips from the US, it directly impacts the export control norms that are right now. That's condition number 1. Condition number 2, this gives a lot of leverage to the US when it comes to future conflicts and issues, for example, geopolitical issues, where US can cut off supplies to China, thereby delaying shipments, delaying production, basically impacting the industrial production. Thirdly, security concerns. What happens is when you are using chips that are non-Chinese, the Chinese government agencies will be giving access to their data to other foreign bodies. These are the 3 primary geopolitical constraints and challenges that are going to come up. As far as technical issues are concerned, we all know that the H200 chips from Nvidia are some of the most advanced AI accelerators out there. So there will definitely not be any technical challenges. There may be issues with infrastructure integration in the Chinese ecosystem because these chips are very advanced and the Chinese have not used such high quality chips before. So let's see what happens over there. But yeah, that's what I foresee happening in the immediate future.
Right. And how does this, what impact might this availability of H200 chips have on competition within China's domestic AI and cloud computing markets?
Yeah. So this is going to impact the demand for high performance chips within China very fast, because the Chinese ecosystem does not have such robust and such advanced chips at present. The competitive positioning will impact China directly in the long term, because a lot of Chinese local companies will start, because we all know the Chinese are very good at adapting technology. So we are going to see that the Chinese global positioning is going to go, for the local companies, is going to go up significantly, because when they start using these chips, they will start copying these chips. And we can very well expect that in the coming years or months, maybe, we will see a lot of competition for Nvidia from local Chinese manufacturers. But again, this is purely speculative, based on how we are anticipating the market will respond, depending on how the chips will perform. If the chips are unable to perform well, if computing power goes down due to the use of such chips, this may have an adverse effect. But for now, at least, we can say that the competitive positioning of Chinese chip manufacturers in the global AI ecosystem is going to be very, very strong.
And how does this approval shift by US, and also China risk profile for US semiconductor companies operating amid US-China tensions?
Yes, so that was part of the first point that I had raised with you, that this reopening of the advanced AI hardware flow between US and China is going to again give a lot of leverage to the US and not China, because right now China has a lot of leverage over US when it comes to rare earth metals, right?
Yes.
Where China can decide when to turn the switch on or turn the switch off when it comes to supplying rare earth metals and materials to the US. US is trying to balance this by having a command over the computing architecture, the computing hardware within China. Thereby, if in the future China again decides to turn off the switch for rare earth metals, US may use their leverage of supply of such chips and more such chips in the future, thereby limiting the impact of the Chinese leverage in the market. So it's more of a counterbalance. This is all part of how the geopolitical steps are taken. And this may very well be a very smart move by the Americans, but I'm sure the Chinese are doing this keeping in mind their long-term interests. So, as I said in my previous answer, you will see a lot of Chinese companies coming up in the market and copying the technology within these chips, thereby trying to reposition the local Chinese chip manufacturing industry against some of the largest in the US and Taiwan.
With that, I would like to thank Mr. Somraj for joining us today and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now we move on to South Korea. A South Korean court has found former First Lady Kim Kyung-hee guilty of accepting the bribes. Kim, the wife of ousted ex-president Yoon Suk-yeol, faced allegations of receiving luxury gifts, including Chanel bags and a diamond necklace, from the Unification Church in exchange for political favors. She was cleared of the charges related to political funding violations and stock manipulation. Prosecutors had sought 15 years in prison and fines of around $2 million. Kim denied all wrongdoing, while the Unification Church says the gifts were given without expectation of influence. Yoon faces multiple trials, including insurrection charges, following his failed attempt to impose martial law in 2024. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.